me and my podcast put a book out together, and we like to call it a mini. We call it a mini book. It's like 40 pages or something.
Okay.
So what this is, it's called the White Monsters of Sherman, New York, and Sherman, New York is an Appalachian town about. It's in Chautauqua County, where we were all born and raised.
Chautauqua?
Chautauqua County.
I love that word.
Yeah.
Saw it at a script spelling bee one year. I'm not going to lie. It was like the final word to spell. It's a great word.
Chautauqua?
Yes. Well, they were like awesome. 6th graders.
So yeah, we were all born and raised there. And we had read a John Keel book, The Complete Guide to Mysterious Beings. Yes. And in that book, a young man writes a letter to John Keel and describes that this is back in the 60s. He describes to John Keel that he's seeing giant monsters, giant white monsters in his yard. They come down from the swamp. And he describes them as giant ground sloths, white creatures, big white ground sloths.
Wow.
And are mylodons, he called them. So we've always loved that story because that was like, that's where nothing happens like that in our backyard. Because that was, I grew up 10 minutes from there. It was like, you know what I mean? I've been there a million times, and and we probably heard that story. I was probably, I don't know how old I was. I was a little bit younger when I first read about it. So it was pretty cool. And like it really stuck in my head because it was like a local thing.
Yeah.
And
is it kind of like an urban legend of something that you didn't know was real, but everybody that you grew up with learned or ended up hearing the legend of these white beasts.
Right. I getting it out there to people in Sherman, they don't really know about it either. I mean, unless you read John Keel, you wouldn't really know about it.
Right.
And there wasn't word on the street or anything. And the letter that the kid wrote was anonymous. So it was hard to nail down. But eventually we were on some kind of like message board, and there's this guy named John G. John G was responding to comments going, I think this was me as a kid. This because it was like a cryptid wiki.
Shut your mouth.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I guess there was a little segment on Cryptid Wiki about these creatures. Cool. There's this guy named John G, and it's like, I think this is me. I'm not sure. I'm a retired school teacher in Ohio now. And so he lives in Ohio. So we took the name. We took he's from Chillicothe, Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah. So he said, I'm a retired school teacher in Chillicothe now. So we did some like sleuthing, some really like weird, like creepy stuff, and just like looked up anybody in Sherman or Chillicothe named John G. And then we came up with a John Goodwill online. And that's the guy's name, John Goodwill. And we couldn't find him online. But me, I was, doing my thing, and I found his son, it turns out. And I told him, like, I don't know if this is you, or I don't know if this is your dad, or, what I messaged him on Facebook, and I was like, if this is your dad, like, just let us know. We want to talk to him. I think it's a cool story. And so he's like, yeah, that's my dad. He still talks about them like all the time.
What?
Yeah.
Dude,
so,
yes.
Bravo.
He wasn't like, nope, I just had a fever dream.
No,
Thankfully.
exactly. So
right.
So the son got a hold of his dad, and he asked the dad if we could have his email, and he said, yeah. So we emailed him. We were a little nervous because we're Mothboys. We like to spoof on people and goof around. And we were straight up just like, we're not going to goof on you. This is like, this is something we love, and this is something.
Right.
This is very dear to our hearts. This is our our hometown essentially. Yeah. And he came back, and he was a little hesitant first, and understandably. And then we actually agreed to meet up in Sherman together. So what we did was we rented the community building in Sherman. And we recorded a podcast there with him, it was really cool because it was John, the guy that saw the creatures, and then his family was like surrounding us. Essentially, his whole family came with, and they were just hanging out around, just listening and stuff. And they were just fascinated by the whole podcast thing. You know what I mean? And at the end of it, everybody was. If you listen to the episode on Mothboys, everybody starts clapping at the end. Everybody's like real happy that like this whole interview went down.
Dude,
and it was just so his whole family. We all hung out after, and he showed us all the encounter spots where he saw all the creatures.
What?
Like him and his family came. We all walked up and down trails. He's like, yeah, that's where I saw that one, and that's where I saw that one. And so it was just spent a day together hanging out with him, and it was wonderful. It was great, and because his whole family saw them. It wasn't him. Him and his brother started seeing them together.
What?
And him and his brother, and then he's got two brothers and a sister, and then a mom and a dad. They would see them often. And then
the thing is ground sloths were a real animal. We know that. For sure.
But
and that's wild. Though maybe they are a species still naturally living in the swamps of West Virginia.
Not in West Virginia,
or I'm sorry, New York,
right?
My bad. Yeah,
New York.
Okay, but I'm just saying, like that's
it's wild. Yeah,
it's hurting my head. It's really
so there's one encounter that he told us about where they were driving down the road, him and his family, and like they because there's like 8 encounters in our book. He remembers like 8 encounters like pretty well. Jesus. So we wrote that we all wrote those. They're all in the book and everything. And then there's art. There's like art with it that comes with it. But there's one really cool one. That's my favorite one. And his family was driving down the road, and they see him in field. They saw him in a field. So the dad whips over, and they just watch. They watch 2 of them, a mom and a dad, and then 2 babies. And the babies are like playing with each other. You know, and like the 2 other creatures are just watching them play, and they just sat and watched them for like a while, just watch these creatures just sitting there. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's wild.
Unbelievable. Now, but they weren't Bigfoot like. They weren't.
It's ground sloth.
Yeah, that's
no. Well, the thing was, he said they had a long tail, and they could walk. They could walk on 2 feet or 4. He saw them on both 2 and 4. So we had the day in Sherman together. That was wonderful, and it was great. And it was really important to us. And we're like, how can we do more for this? How can we get this guy's story out there? How can we, and we decided to do the book, and, this book is to get this man's story out, and nothing else. This is any money we've made from this book has gone back into the book, ordering more copies to send to people. We're doing a festival next month in Sherman. It's called Sherman Day. It's tiny town festival, you know what I mean? But they're really excited to have us, and we're going to be selling the book there. And we're hoping that more people we're hoping more people can come out to come to the festival and just tell us that maybe they've seen them too or something. You know what I mean? Right. That'd be really great.
Well, but I was going to ask, have they ever found historically remains of dug up?
Well, the thing is, there's a thing called the Chautauqua Gorge, which isn't too far away, and people have rumored that there's a cave system there.
Oh gosh.
And and that's something that we want to explore eventually, but we haven't. Because I've been going to the gorge, but I didn't know of a cave system at all. So, but there's been rumors of a cave system there. So that's where John thinks they might be, hanging out.